Hey y'all, it's Sarah, and I want to talk about ornaments. So you can see I still kind of have my little mess laid out. I'm not giving up on this. I'm still down to the few little things that I'm trying to clear off my tray, even though I've added a couple others to it. Um, but I am still trying to use all my little teeny tiny scraps. I know some of you guys have already had some questions um, on the size of these things. Um, and feeling like they might be too big for a normal tree. So I posted a picture in the group of them on um, I can't remember if that is supposed to be a 4-foot tree or a 5-foot tree. I think maybe it's supposed to be a 5-foot tree, but you guys know how that works. The last like foot of it is usually the one little long crazy stalk out the top. But they line up pretty nicely size-wise. Even on that smaller tree, they're not nearly as large as what you would think. And I guess maybe part of the distortion is I do have it up really close so that you guys could see the details as I was making them. But they really aren't that super large. The scraps I'm using are coming from the base of most of them. The biggest ones have been on these little 6-inch by 3-inch wide strips. So nothing is really any larger than that. The scale is going to be fine for a normal tree, even a smaller tree. The scale is really cute for your tier trays. So I wanted to address that because I know there's been questions and worry about, oh, it's going to be really large. They're really no larger than most of the ornaments you see at like Hobby Lobby and those kind of places. So don't let that stop you from jumping in. And besides, even if the scale is not right for you, like what I'm doing the scale at, if you want to go bigger or smaller, you absolutely can just adjust whatever it is I'm working with and do it to your size. So next question that I wanted to address while I'm playing with all these ornaments is I have been asked about all the little accessories that I'm putting on those. So if you've been watching along with most of these as I'm playing, you've gotten to see a lot of the accessories kind of being made as I go. But I did want to address a couple that I got specifically asked about today and explain what they are and where they came from or how I did them. So really quick before I jump into the couple of little ones little ornaments I want to show, I wanted to show a few of these little side kind of accessories. So this is the Dollar Tree sponge daubers. Also, they're paint sponge. These guys, they all come with these wooden handles. So for me, whenever this sponge breaks down, it's no good, or it dries out, or it starts to crumble and fall apart, because they will over time, they start to wear down and the foam gives out, the glue holding them down gives out after you've washed them a lot of times. I rip everything off, take the little stick portion, the little handle portion, and I throw it in my little bin that actually has wood pieces in it. I have a little bin that I keep like my little tumbling tower Jenga pieces in, and any kind of little wood pieces that I pick up here and there goes in this one little bin. And that's what I'm using. I kind of keep these, and this is the first time I've actually felt like I've gotten really fun use out of them. But I wanted to show also, there are 3 size sponges in here. And if you look, each one of those handles is a slightly different size from one another. I didn't measure when I made my little candles on these. So some of them are larger, and I've got a whole pile. And you can kind of see like these two, this came out off of the larger one. This came off of that middle size one. I did not measure any of my candles. I didn't even paint all of them. Some of them I left kind of in that wood tone. This one had paint on it. I sanded some of that paint down and it ended up giving it like a birch kind of look. All I did for the wicking is I used the thread out of this Dollar Tree hair weaving set because it was a nice thickness. You guys can see that. It's got a pretty nice little thickness to it. So that's what I used. I just dropped a little tiny bit of glue right in the center, pop those in place, and that was how I got that. As far as the glass jars and the cute little jars and those kind of things, those are, honest to goodness, straight from Dollar Tree. They have I did not realize this whole time that they had so many varieties of those little glass bottles. I kind of always assumed that they were all the same. You know, I knew they had this style, and I remember seeing the ones with the cork, but the ones with the cork, they have 3 different sizes of these little guys. They have this size here, and then there's one size smaller. Let's see if I can find it. You can see there is like one little size smaller. So all of the little vases, jars, whatever that I'm showing, that's what they're from, are these Dollar Tree little glass things. I had a bunch of them anyway because I was going to store my craft glitter this way and then realized that I had way too much glitter. I don't know if there's such thing as that, but I did have too much glitter to use these. So now I'm getting some use out of it. This one I just painted with a little chalk paint. And it went on there just fine. You can see it took it very well. So there's a couple little ideas. Other things I have made as I go. The little artwork and things. I either hand drew that on there. And you'll see that as I go. I just used a white paint pen or a white gel pen to do that. Or I used some of the Dollar Tree stickers. And I want to show you. I used several of these little foam stickers. You can see I painted some with Waverly's, what is this one? This is Waverly Cashew, and it really gives that raw wood look. And I didn't even clean the glitter off of these. I just painted right over it. The texture ends up being cool with the glitter and the chalk paint covering it. Some of them I left white. You can see I've used quite a few of these. So this was one direction I went to make my little artwork pieces on some of those. And then I have some of that you might have seen on some of my newer pieces that I posted. I had some like little wood looking Christmas trees. They are in fact not wood. These are more of the foam stickers. And guys, I've had these for so many years. I don't know where these came from, but I think Dollar Tree has something similar. Most places have these kind of foam glittery Christmas stickers this time of year. So that's what I use to make some of my little fake looking wooden trees. I turned around and did the same thing, painted them in with this cashew. So hopefully that gives you a good start. You'll see some more as I go. The wreaths, those are all just handmade from greenery that I've cut off of other things. So I got asked all that. I really wanted to hit some of those to, for those of you that are trying to think up things. If you don't have a way to do these little things, I was mentioning to someone that size-wise, they were about the scale of a fat Crayola marker. So it made me think that, you know, if you've got some dried out markers, the lids to those might actually work as your candles too. Now that all that blabbering part of ideas is done, I want to jump into a couple of projects. First one first, I think I'm going to use something about this size, and let me tell you really quick what this is. This is 5 3/4 by about 1 1/4. So I'm going to be using this piece. It looks like I may need to make something for my little legs. It doesn't look like I have anything left at this 1 1/4 width. So I'm going to find something that I can cut. Oh, nope. There's one. I'm just going to find something that I can kind of cut and make me some little legs for this. And you're going to see where this is going to go. The only other thing that I'm going to be using for this is some more of my little tiny triangles. And let me grab those. These little guys, these are the ones that when we do our 45-degree angles on the 1-inch framing piece, this is what I always end up with. And I did save several of those over time. I've already used some of them, but we're going to need 4 of these little triangles for this. Okay, so I've got a couple pieces sitting here now, and I'm ready to kind of show you some things. One of the things that I wanted to show, and this is kind of what I feel like maybe one of the biggest hindrances to people when it comes to playing with this, is cutting it. And it seems even scarier doing it on a smaller scale, which I feel like, honestly, this is probably a little easier than cutting on the large scale. if I'm being truthful with you. So I kind of wanted to show you a little more on the cutting. I'm trying to get this little piece down to the same size as this one. And so that needs to be 1.25 inches wide for me. There's a couple tips that I want to show you on this because I don't want anybody to be scared of this part. And let's be honest, these are supposed to look cute and rustic. So if your cuts aren't perfect, roll with it. You know, on the cute and rustic front, there's not a lot of perfection there anyway. So I think that you can kind of get away with it, but I want to give you a few tips on how to make this work a little easier. One thing, if you noticed, this is just the Dollar Tree poster putty, and I usually keep some stuck to my ruler. One of the things about that is that it really, really helps keep your ruler from sliding on you and getting crooked cuts. Especially when you're doing these little bitty pieces, it's very easy to slide off and kind of go astray. One of the major things, and I can't express this one enough, start your blade always above what you're planning on cutting. The reason is that when you try to put pressure right here, a lot of times it doesn't break that surface cleanly. It wants to crush it first. When you start up above, you're putting your pressure and getting that pressure and depth established ahead of time before it ever hits that, and you get a much easier, much nicer, much cleaner cut. So I'm going to start up here well before I hit that piece and come down, and there you go. And I've got a really straight, smooth cut. And that tends to be one of the biggest factors for me. Now, I'm using the cutting mat just because it's handy and it's what fits on my desk so that I have room for all my other mess. But if I had the space to spread out, like if I'm working on my kitchen island, I prefer to use a cardboard box underneath me. I feel more confident in my cuts, and it feels like it ultimately takes less strength for me to dig into that. These self-healing mats cause a little bit of drag, and you know, it makes your fingertips hurt. It makes you eventually get tired on the cutting. So I like the cardboard box surface to cut on a little better. I typically prefer to hold my blade with these little things. It is a little harder for me to keep taking them off and putting them back on in order to touch these little small pieces. But these really do, if you can actually pick things up. I struggle because I have acrylic tips, so it already makes it hard for me. I would recommend these quite a bit. They give you a little protection there on those fingers, and that rubbery part lets you hold that blade really securely. Especially if you at least do the fingers that are touching that blade, you get a little more security. You get a lot of protection, because part of my problem is that my skin has gotten older and thinner, and my fingertip gets sore after a while from handling this blade. And I know that I'm not the only one that runs into that your fingertip starts getting sore. So that's one of the things I want to throw in there. And a lot of it is just practice. The more I do this, the better I've gotten at it. When I first started, my husband did a lot of my cuts for me. I would write down the measurements. He would do the cutting and give me all the pieces. And eventually I got better at getting the smaller cuts, the cleaner cuts, just with more practice. So all of that blabbering, a couple of things. I got asked about how I'm making the edges painted out. So here in my little cup, I have a mixture of the Waverly Antique and some of the black ink chalk paint, and then a little bit of clear just to help offset this paint. But all I'm doing literally when I make this little batch is I take just a little popsicle stick, dip it down in there, blob it in there. I might, if I want it a little darker, I might dip it in here one more time, get some paint on it, stir it around, and that's what my mixture is. So it's just a slightly darkened version. And for all of these, I'm just using the sponge that I do the edge of my bigger pieces with. I'm just going in and using that and kind of filling that in. You can always do a lot of your pieces at the very end once it has been put together. But this right here is pretty much all you need. The backside, I'm not necessarily getting as good of a wood looking grain as I do when I sit and do my entire piece, but I'm getting, you know, enough just to put some color on there so that I'm not seeing any white show through from the back sides of these pieces. Or in this case, you're going to see the underside of this little piece. And I'm hoping that I'll get a couple of ornaments in here. This one, actually the two that I want to show you for this one, and I may have to put some of the others in another video. Both of these can work with your elf on a shelf. If you guys do elf on a shelf, this idea will work for your little elves, or just as ornaments if you want to use it as ornaments. So these should be a good enough scale. I don't have an elf anymore. My elf retired, and I'm going by memory at about how wide his hiney was, and how big his body was. I was supposed to borrow my neighbor's elf, but he is indisposed right now. So I'm gauging it by estimation. All right, so on these little triangles, you definitely want this one long side, the longer side of your triangle, and front and back of it. You don't have to get all the other edges. Both the two shorter edges, honestly, they're going to be glued to what we're doing. And as I start putting this together, you're going to recognize exactly what it is, because it is a small scale copy of a bench, kind of a bench design, a farmhouse bench design that has become fairly popular these days. So I'm just doing the same thing for all of these. I'm just going to go in, make sure that I don't have any white showing through. You could do an entire set of these out of white scraps too if you wanted to, and just add color with your accessories and your ribbons. But the whole point of this was for me to use these scraps up. Okay, so all of mine have enough color to them for me that I feel like I can assemble without a problem. And I'm going to bring my hot glue over, and we're going to start putting this thing together. And that was more scraps, by the way. Like I said, I have myself surrounded by all of my favorite goodies so that I could sit and play with this. Okay, so we're going to take this little, what'd I say? It was 1.25 inches. We're going to put legs right about here. But I'm going to go ahead and get some triangles attached. So it's going to sit funny for just a minute, but I want you to know there is a plan to it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put it down here, bumped right up about to the end, but I came over a little bit, and that goes back to, you can kind of set this one up any which way you want to. I'm just giving the idea. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And really quickly, while I have glue on this side, I'm going to go ahead and put one of these legs in. Uh-oh, that one's not painted, so I got to use this one. And I'm just doing a solid leg. I thought it looked fine. And I don't know if you guys can see where I'm going with that. And I did not get that on there fast enough for that glue. Whoop! I just slung that completely across the room. Okay, I needed a moment. I had to go fetch that. Apparently, when I get excited about things, I just start throwing them all around. So, I'm back to this other end now. That one is in its place. I'm going to go in and put these little triangles down at the other end. Can you guys tell where this is going? It's a little farmhouse bench. If you haven't figured that out. Let's see. I'm going to give those just a second, since I pulled this one off already and flung it across the room. I may need to be a little gentler with this one. So I'm just going to come in and do the same thing. I've got my glue there. I'm going to kind of get that one tip, and we're popping that in place too. There we go. That should have my little bench. I've done this 2 ways, and I want to show you both directions. So the real benches themselves, they typically have the little triangle pointing out that way. I also did one where they come in this direction. You can see I liked both. I actually think I prefer this direction, even though the ones that are the real ones that I've seen on Pinterest, their little triangles go outwards. I did like the support of this inwards. So in order to decorate this little guy, I cut down, this is like a 3-inch ribbon. I cut it down and I kind of just glued down the edges so that it would kind of look like a little blanket. That was kind of where I was aiming, is to make it look like a little blanket. I could just put my little blanket there, bring in one of these little jugs, maybe pop a little piece of greenery in there. Let's see if I got a little small stem somewhere here. You know, pop a little greenery in there, or have it pop back out. One or the other. That one's not long enough, I think. Here we go. I'm just going to pull these little pieces off here. And totally cute. You probably already saw this in one of my photos. At this scale, I'm pretty sure that your little elf Tiny can fit on these. So you could set up a whole little scene with your elf, having picnicking, who knows. It was just a fun little idea. But for me, one of the things I want to show you guys to go with this or sit with this is I kind of wanted to show you a little miniature milk crate. And I posted one of these, a different version of what I'm going to show you, yesterday on the group. And it was just an individual photo. It didn't have anything in the background. And I think it confused people as to thinking it was a full-size piece. But we're going to be doing it in small scale. So I went ahead and pulled some pieces that I think will work for this. And I still may have to do a little trimming. I'm going to be using these right here. And I'm going to use this largest form of these glass bottles, which they come in a 6-pack. The way I'm making these are going to take 3 at a time. There is one set that is slightly smaller, you can see, and I did do a little one with that, but I had to stuff the bottom of my little crate in order to get these to set up. This one that I'm going to make, these little bottles are long enough that we don't even have to stuff our crate. So you're going to need a couple of scraps, roughly around this size, and when I say roughly around this size, let me tell you what roughly this size is. Let's see, these are 1.5 inches by 3 inches, so still working from 3-inch strips. Typically these are cut off of 3-inch strips. These little side pieces are going to be 3 inches long, but they are only 1.25 inches wide. The last thing that we're going to need on this little guy is, let me grab one really quick. I'm going to be using a skewer. This is just a barbecue skewer, shish kebab skewer. And there's a couple different kinds. You can use the long skinny ones, or if you've got the shorter thicker ones. I think the shorter thicker ones honestly would fit this scale just fine. Also, I happen to use a skinnier one on the one I made yesterday, and it looked just fine. So any kind of little stick, basically. Okay, so I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to go ahead and get my edges painted. I really like this one. I'm obsessed with I like crates. I like little crates, I like containers. So I have full-size little crates around here that have like the Dollar Tree little milk bottles, the normal size ones. So of course I was going to love it in small scale too. Out of one of these 3-inch by 1.5 inch pieces, decide which one is going to be your bottom and which one's going to be your sides. I'm pretty sure that on mine, they're all painted out about the same, so it really doesn't matter for me. This one, you can tell it had some indentions in it. I'm going to leave them, and I'm just going to use this just how it is. So to assemble, we are taking one of the 1.5 by 3 inch, and we're going to go ahead and pop it down on another 1.5 by 3 inch like this. So once I get that in place, I'm just going to kind of sit here and tweak it and make sure that I've got a pretty decent 90-degree angle as it dries. And we can kind of edit that. If it doesn't dry at a 90-degree angle, we're going to be sort of working with that. Our sides will help straighten that out. I love these. They don't have to be perfect. I'm going to do the same thing here with this other 1.5 by 3 inch, and y'all don't get lost in the sizing. Use what you got. If you've got one that's 2 inches by whatever, use it. All right, so I've got my sides, and you can see what I mean, because there's slight warping in some of these, you know. I don't have mine stored in the small ones. My bigger ones, they're stored nicely. The small ones, I've kind of just thrown in a bin, and they get warped, they bend. Don't panic. Just work with it. So I'm going to go ahead and come in, and I'm putting my glue on this side. I don't know how close I pulled that to myself, guys. I don't know if that was weirdly close for y'all. So I'm going to pop that into the side. And you can see that at this 3 inch length, this is obviously way longer than this portion, and that's okay. So the next thing I want to go ahead and do, and I'm going to show you, this ended up making it easier for me, is to do these at the same time so that they're lining up the same direction. It's much harder once you get this thing assembled. So I'm just going to take this little wooden skewer, and I'm going to spin it the whole time I'm going through. I ordinarily would do this with a crocodile, but I know not everybody has a crocodile, so I want to show a way that you can do it without the crocodile. So there we go. I've spun it with both of those stacked up. You may have to go in and kind of touch that up. If it blows it out a little much, come in with just a little bit of your paint. I typically run a little bead of glue down in those holes to kind of smooth those out. But you can clean up some of that little paper blowout, just adding a little paint to hide it. And you can kind of see what I'm doing there. I'm just... and that usually happens on the side that's getting pushed out. So now that the holes are made and I don't have to worry about getting those aligned, I can come in and go ahead and get this other side up. Make sure that I got the hole there at the top now. I've got glue strings all over the place. Mercy. So once that is together, you can go ahead and put your little stick in, or at least get it started. I found it easier at this stage to go ahead and put my little bottles in, because it's much harder to get them down in there once your handle is in the way. So once they're in there, well, I guess instead of using those scraps, I still should have measured this one. I'm going to drop a little something in there just to lift these up. They still didn't come up as high as I had hoped they were going to. Had I made my sides a little bit lower, it wouldn't be a problem. Oh, perfect. That's really all I needed, that little extra bit of boost. Look how cute those are in there. So I've just pushed that through. I can come back in and paint this if I wanted to, or leave it that raw color. On my other one, I left it the raw color, so this one I'm probably going to paint. The last thing I've got to do is just get some, trying to find my scissors that I cut hard things with, that I don't have to worry about damaging it. So one of the things that I suggest is pop it out a little, get your cut, and I don't think these scissors are going to do it for me. I'm a little scared when I do this on camera. Normally I like to put these in a Ziploc or something so that when that little thing goes flying, I at least know which way it's going to fly. So cut one end off first and get it lined up, and then go in and cut your other side. It just made it a little easier for me. So now once they're cut flush, you can just go in and pop a little glue right on the end of that. You could come in and use some of like the little Dollar Tree beads. They're little colorful wooden beads that they have, and pop at the end of this if you wanted to, if you have some of those handy. I'm just cleaning up that cut a little bit so that I make sure that it's flush. And there you go. I'm going to go ahead and try to cut this one off here to the side without getting this piece flying everywhere. Okay, so if you notice, I prefer to cut those kind of things off camera because I get spooked and I will embarrass myself. I still get spooked by the toaster whenever it pops up. So I'm always afraid I'm going to embarrass myself when it finally snaps and goes flying. So the last thing I'm going to play with is dressing this guy up. I've got just some little kind of evergreen looking greenery here that I can kind of pop down in these pieces or down in these little bottles if you wanted to, which is super cute. I don't know if you guys can see that. Ooh, that was a weird extreme close-up. I can also do like I did with my other ribbons where, let's see, I've got a couple little ribbons sitting here and they're all gingham buffalo check. Guys, please don't make me lie to y'all about where these come from because I cannot remember ever. I just look every store I go into, I look to see if they have a black and white style ribbon. So you can come in, you can decorate this up. What I think would be really cute is if you are a vinyl user and you can make letters on this small of a scale. Awesome for you. I cannot weed things that small, but they sell stickers that are very tiny that you could absolutely use on the front of this. I ended up just using a little ribbon around the front of mine. You could put a little bow. The other thing that I wanted to show you is here on this edge. And I was going to show you guys that as I made this one. I'm going to turn him sideways so you can kind of still see him. I did want to show this really quick. So you could easily, both sides of this is marked, so it's a little hard for me to show you. Here's one that's blank. You can easily come in, and I'm just going to mark like maybe, this is not very big, maybe 1/4 inch over on each one and 1/4 inch down. And this is just an extra detail that you could throw into there. But I'm marking those so I can just come in and cut on that angle, and you'll see what I mean about the detail it would add to the side. So I'm still starting up above, especially on a cut this small. I definitely don't want to just crush that down or cause it to be jagged. So I'm basically doing kind of like I did when I made the tags. If you saw that video, the little faux wooden gift tags. It's basically kind of that same concept. So I really could have done something like this and gone in and done those sides, and I think that that would have been a cute detail. But for the sake of simplicity, mine are just straight. But I wanted to show that little detail. I'm going to go ahead and add some cute little things to this. I'm not really... Ooh, I like that skinnier ribbon. Wow, I get sidetracked so easily. So I think I'm going to add just the skinnier ribbon to this. I'm going to bring my little bench back over here. Come on, guys, that's cute. I'm sorry, that's cute. I feel like that's cute. So you could set that on there. Put something cute. I know you guys are looking at it kind of sideways. something like that would absolutely be stinking cute. This would be so cute in a tier tray. This little one right here, the little bench would be cute in a tier tray. If you're trying to lift something up, as long as it's not too heavy. If it's just a smaller item and you're just trying to lift something up in a tier tray, this would be awful cute. Look, there's a whole little scene right there. Just cuteness. I hope you guys think it's cuteness. I'm having so much fun playing with these, and I'll keep sharing them as long as you want to keep seeing them. And even if you only do one, I'm okay with that. If it just, kind of gets your noodle going. I'm having a field date with these, and I honestly love them on my tree way more than I thought I was going to. I was mostly doing it just to kind of clear out all these little bitty scraps. But turns out I actually love this. And this may be a whole new obsession for me. But you can see these are just so fun to play with. It's like being able to decorate without, changing your whole house. I think this is kind of the kid in me reminiscing about getting to play with things. For those of you that are watching for ideas for doll houses, I've seen several say that. I've never made a doll house as an adult. They're not something that you could really play with actively over and over, I don't think, because, the foam core, I know some of you have problems with it wanting to do that right there on you, especially after they have been painted. You can see even with most of my scraps that really I've gotten it down to a point where I've got the mixture really well, and mine don't break down as easily. So I don't know that I would want to play with these, but for looks, they're really fun. But I've sat here and handled mine over and over, and they've been okay. I do want to share a little quick tip with you, though. This right here, if you have some edges that start coming off on you like this, try not to use your wet glue, because your wet glues can seep under there and kind of undo the whole process even worse. Like your Elmer's wet school glue could make this worse than better. So just go in, pop some of that in place, because it's low moisture, but it sticks really fast. And you should be good to go. You can see that just kind of went right back together. I don't have a whole lot of that. You can see with all the pieces that I've been beating around and knocking around and digging through. But I do know some of you guys have run into that. That's going to be your friend in fixing those if you run into that problem. And I think that's everything. I don't know. These get me so excited and sidetracked that my brain gets more on the making of the little details, and I forget what I'm supposed to be telling you guys. So this is all I'm going to show you on this one, because I'm going to sit here. If I sit here any longer, I'm just going to keep playing and putting things on here. I hope these give you some really cute ideas, though. I thought the little bench was super fun. This is likely going to go in my little scenery area that I have created. I'm going to have to get a picture out of what that has turned into. It's turned into its own little beast. But the rest of these have already ended up on a tree for me. And I'm kind of in love. So there we go. I've got at least 2 more coming your way. Honestly, I've got a lot more ideas. If you want them, I'll give them. If not, I'm going to be sitting here playing with them and making them myself just to see how they turn out. But that's it, guys. I hope it gives you some ideas. I've seen some of you already posting your versions. They are so cute. I want to die. They are absolutely adorable. Keep it up, because I like seeing the variations. I love the ones with the red added. Those are super cute, by the way. Those of you that have been adding the pops of red, super cute. And I'm going to keep throwing ideas at you, and you guys can knock out as many as you want to, or just at least think about knocking one out. And that's it. I hope you get a chance to get creative. I'm going to continue to be creative, and you guys have a great weekend. Everyone stay safe and try to stay warm. Winter is a-coming. Bye, y'all.